Before we get to today's topic about how college football can avoid being monopolized by the Big Ten and the SEC and maybe have a valid Power 3 as opposed to a Power 4, let's go ahead and give those four horsemen shout-outs of the day. They go to Keelback first, Sooner, J.H. Travels, Tammy Burton, and Richard Burton are saddled up, mounted up, ready to go, and they're going to help us with today's college football invasion. Also, let's go ahead and get that comment of the day out of the way. It goes to Tim Gillespie. He says, I'm an OU fan. I hate Texas, but even I can't go along with the idea that Clemson to Texas is a lateral move. That's laughable. And that's in reference to the video I done the other day about the possibility of Texas losing Steve Sarkisian and whom they would get to replace him. And a lot of the Clemson fans said it would be a lateral move for Dabo Swinney to go to Texas when it is absolutely not. Now, let's talk about it. Woo! In the Still of the Night is our song of the day by White Snake, because it seems like these conference realignment things sometimes happen in the still of the night. Now, the Pac-12 thing didn't. It was one of the anomalies of all the conference realignment from years past, and that we saw that coming from a mile away. Although USC and UCLA did catch some people off, slightly off. So, but for the last 10 or 15 years or so, it's just like one morning you go, one night you go to sleep, and then one morning you wake up and boom shakalaka boom, there's been realignment in the middle and the still of the night. But I think, and this is what we're going to talk about today, is I think there's a way, there's a tunnel, there's a little light at the end of a small tunnel for the Big 12 and the ACC and the rest of the college football world that is not of Big Ten fandom and SEC fandom. And I'm an SEC guy saying this. Like I said, I'm a college football connoisseur. I love all things college football. I know in the back of my mind that it's going more and more towards an NFL-esque type atmosphere. But just to keep a small modicum of what college football is and to at least feel like it's not completely NFL-esque, I think there's something they can do maybe to curb this impending monopolization by the Big Two. And that is if the ACC and the Big 12 can acquiesce and get along with each other long enough to merge and form an entirely new conference. I'm going to bring up a little article here in a second. It's on a Pittsburgh Panther forum. A guy makes some good suggestions. If the Big Four were to leave, that being North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and what they could do, I mean, you might end up having to drop some teams from the Big 12 as well in order to make this conference work. His was like a 32-team format. But let's go ahead and bring that up real quick and show you exactly what his idea was. I'm in favor of them merging, like he's saying, but I think that you're going to have to, unfortunately, cut some teams a la Oregon State and Washington State. And here it is. The Eastern Division, he has an American pod, an Atlantic pod, a Coastal pod, and a Northeast pod. With Cincinnati, Houston, SMU, UCF, an American, Atlantic, Duke, Georgia Tech, NC State, Wake Forest. Coastal would be Boston College, UConn, UVA, Virginia Tech. Northeast pod, Louisville, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, West Virginia. UConn, by the way, it's not in either of these conferences, but it's a nice little added caveat that he put in there. In the Western Division, he has a Central pod with Colorado, Iowa State, Kansas State, a Mountain pod with Arizona State, BYU, and Utah. Pretty interesting pod there. Pacific pod, Cal, Oregon State, Stanford, and Washington State. Southwest pod would be Baylor, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech. Another interesting pod. But that's basically what he is saying that he thinks should take place, that can take place, with maybe a 32-team league for these guys that are outside the Big Two in order to maybe combat what looks like is likely to end up happening in 4 or 5 years. So what do y'all think about that? I think it's a little too many teams, maybe. But they have to trim some fat, I think, and get it down to maybe at most 24. I think 24 is probably the biggest that any of these conferences need to get. But for those out there that aren't being invited to the Big Ten and the SEC party in order to keep themselves relevant, I think this is the only option, is to merge these two conferences. But one of the biggest things that needs to take place, first of all, is for the ACC to get this aura that they have in their head, this unrealistic view of themselves that, oh, we're better than the Big 12. They're a bunch of hillbillies or hicks out in the middle of cornfields playing football. Their academics aren't strong enough to be associated with us. Y'all going to have to stop that shit. And I know there's some elitist people out there that get on here and respond. You got a North Carolina Tar Heel guy that gets on here, 7406, jackass, whatever his name is. But y'all might have to let that shit go, man. The academics are not a part of this. If they were, then the Big Ten would have invited Stanford and Cal instead of USC and UCLA. So if you come in here and you try to play that shit like, oh, no, it matters. Academics matter, absolutely matter. We're not going to do that. Okay, well, then you'll go the wayside like the Pac-12. Pac-12 was doing the same crap, man. Them in the Big Ten, the ACC did this this loosely knitted alliance a few years back, if you remember. We're going to stick together and we're going to stand up to the big bad SEC and the Big 12. And then it just dissolved because the Big 10 lured the Pac-12 in and then basically stabbed them in the back and got the Big 12 to help them do their dirty work in the middle. And then at the end, they killed them off and then tried to play it off like, oh, we didn't kill them. We didn't kill them. We didn't have nothing to do with that. Yeah, you did. You started it and you ended it. The Big 12 was just there to pick up stuff to help themselves at that point. I mean, you can't really blame the Big 12. But the ACC continues their fans. And I watched a podcast with my buddy Kuz today. It's actually a pretty good podcast about this. Check it out on Kuz's Corner. The ACC people got this thing in their head. Well, we made more money than the Big 12. It shows in the stats and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you did, but it's not stable money. You got a little bit more money, not much more, but you have instability. Which, if the instability is too bad, the money's not going to matter because you're not going to have a conference anymore. Just like the Pac-12. Now, if you want to continue that way and try to be snooty and thumb your nose and claim that academics is that important, academics is important to a small degree, but these conferences, look at all of them. They're all based on football and basketball powerhouses. It has nothing to do with academics. If you say it is, it's just like the Big Ten with that stupid-ass AAU crap. It's crap. Nebraska lost their AAU status, and they're still in the Big Ten. Notre Dame is not a research institution, yet suspiciously they got their AAU accreditation right when this stuff's going on. That's just the Big Ten patronizing those supposed elite academic smart people out there who have no common sense to know that they're being played and gaslit. But the only way this is going to stop, man, is if the ACC puts those feelings aside and the Big 12 puts their feelings aside as far as having their feelings hurt by the ACC people, and they merge. Cut the fat, get rid of a few teams. I'm not going to delve into who should be cut and whatnot. I'll let y'all leave that in the comment section who you think should be cut out of the mix if these two were to merge and maybe have a 20 to 24 team conference. And that way they would have a small chance at making this in the future a Power 3 instead of a Power 2. Because the Power 4 thing, it's going to end up going away, I'm afraid. The ACC don't make amends with the Big 12 and stop with the elitist bullshit, they're going to be the next Pac-12, in my opinion. And that's all I got to say about that. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. It's the Big Four, and they're all absolutely free. And if you want to do a little something extra and you want to get your badge and get deputized, each random Four Horseman shout out, as well as possibly the comment of the day like those guys did earlier in the show, there's a little join button over there by the subscribe button. Smash that join button, and you'll be in the Outlaw Posse. Also, there's a little heart down here with a money dollar sign in the middle. If you want to make a one-time donation to the program to help keep the lights on, smash that heart, throw a few dollars in the coffers. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.